Hello and welcome to another episode of Not Too Deep. I'm your host, Grace Helbig. We have Hank Green back with us for another episode. Last time he was here was a few years ago, and lots has happened since. We talk about his newest novel, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor, and the original title, and why the original title might have been a little bleak and not so hopeful as the current title is. We also talk about what it's like being the poster child for TikTok. We learn about the algorithm ins and outs of it. We also learn a lot about science and a lot about man of wars, more than I thought I would ever in my life, let alone on one episode of a podcast of Not Too Deep. But we do. Get ready for another episode of Not Too Deep with Hank Green. Hank Green, thank you for being here. TikTok's cover boy, Hank Green.
Oh, have you seen my TikToks?
Oh, I just went on a journey of the Hank Green TikToks, and look, I'm a big fan of Delete This and Dear Hank and John. I listen to them very regularly, so I've only heard you mention this TikTok journey that you've been on.
Yes.
In both podcasts. And so I, knowing that you were going to be here with us today, did my research, and wow.
What do you think?
I mean, I get it. It's your TikToks. I've been so confused and have felt like I can't puncture the hole or the bubble that is TikTok. And I kind of, you help me kind of get it.
Yeah, it's got a really specific energy that is actually very similar to mine overall.
To your personal energy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's frenetic. It's never focused on any one thing for more than 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And like one of the things that I like very much about TikTok is that like failure is both fine and expected.
Yes.
I was worried about making content because people would be like, why did you make that thing? Did you think that was going to be successful? You don't understand the platform, but it's just like most like TikTokers make like 8 videos a day and
I know.
expect all of them to do poorly.
That's the one thing, because I also couldn't do Vine. Like, I don't know if chemically I just wasn't made for it, and I tried.
Me either. Yeah.
And so that's my kind of blind association with TikTok, is that it's got that kind of energy, but it really does like put a saddle on anxiety and like lets you ride it.
Yeah.
It is because even just looking at your homepage, all of the thumbnails are just like gyrating a little bit, which creates, when you look at it in whole, a very anxiety-inducing experience versus like looking at someone on Instagram that has a perfectly aesthetically curated, like monochromatic or whatever kind of thing. Yeah, and so I get it, that it just like allows you to use that kind of unbridled, unhinged, frenetic energy.
Yeah, and absolutely no idea what's going to do well. No idea.
Really?
I'll upload I'll be like, this one's gold, this one's huge, and it'll get like 20,000 views. And then I'll just like do this offhanded crap that's got like a half joke in it, and it gets like 10 million.
Is there any familiarity to the beginning of YouTube?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Really?
I mean, there's a couple of really familiar things. One is that nobody's doing it for money because there isn't much. You have to have a very big TikTok audience to be making any money at all on the platform.
Right.
And so and the other reason that it's not about money is that like the moment that you start to want to turn your creative TikTok endeavor into something, you have to be spending time doing that rather than spending time making your TikToks. And if you are spending time doing that, or like seem interested in drawing people off of that platform, there's always somebody else ready to take your spot. Like you have very little control over your audience, which is very different from early YouTube, where like early YouTube, subscribers was the main way that you got views, and you had that really tight relationship with them. Whereas on TikTok, it feels very much like I don't have a couple of people, but mostly I don't have a very tight relationship with any of the people I follow on TikTok. And don't really even expect to see them on my For You page that often.
Right. So is that, as someone that's, lived the whole whatever blueprint of YouTube now, is that more exciting to you to be on TikTok where you have no ability to analyze and kind of figure out how this algorithm works? Or is it more frustrating to be like, I can't figure out how this goddamn algorithm works?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I understand perfectly how the algorithm works, which is that it is designed to give you random reward, which is how you hack a human brain to continue trying something. And
Ah,
if you give people a clear path to how to get to the reward, then that is much less appealing than when if they don't quite know. And then they try all kinds of things and behave in all kinds of irrational ways and continue seeking the reward. This works on dogs, this works on people, this works on children. Like it's
this
really like casino level stuff.
Yeah, there's a oh man, that just brought me back to I remember taking an improv class when I was like early 20s, and we had an exercise that we did that was like the hardest one of our class, where our teacher told us we had to do improv by ourselves in front of the whole class, and we couldn't stop until our teacher told us we were allowed to stop. So
Mhm.
it like pushed you to keep trying different things to get your teacher
Mhm.
to tell you, okay, you've completed your exercise. And it was the most vulnerable, raw thing
Yeah.
and frustrating. And people were crying at moments, which is what I assume TikTok is, just putting yourself
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah, I mean, it is very open and creative and wild and weird, and it reminds me of early YouTube in a lot of ways. And it's also like very clearly the way that people are getting noticed now. Like it's so hard
Mm,
to break through on YouTube, and and so hard, and even Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those places have gotten
yeah.
Twitch too has gotten harder to break through. But on TikTok, there's both like the because you can't make money, a lot of bigger creators kind of are and also it's kind of got a fairly impenetrable culture sometimes. A lot of bigger
Mm,
creators aren't taking the time to interface with it. And honestly, I wouldn't either if I wasn't like just sort of deeply curious about internet media. The only
right.
reason I started doing it was because I was like, okay, fine, I need to understand this platform and I'm not going to understand it unless I make content on it.
Sure, but you're also a human being that martyrs yourself for your craft. Like, I feel like if you're
I-
I listen to Delete This. I know what Catherine feels about how involved you are in everything that you're doing, so pile it on with added TikTok,
Yeah. I mean,
content.
I really do have to stop making TikToks fairly soon just because I've got a lot else going on.
Mhm.
And there's also a piece of me that wanted to sort of build up a little TikTok following for my book launch.
Well, no, that's not like that you shouldn't feel weird about that.
Yeah.
That's just natural, good
Yeah.
strategy, marketing, etcetera.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a lot of it feels like a lot of my people are on TikTok, like a lot of old nerd fighters or, people who watch Crash Course and SciShow are on that platform. So,
that's great.
yeah.
Uh, okay, well, let's talk about A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Cuz I will
How
not stop talking about TikTok if you don't stop me.
No, I know, and this is how I'm just using you as, like, my source of information for all things TikTok, because
Mhm.
honestly, watching you TikTok makes me believe that I could TikTok.
You totally fucking could. You would I think you would kill.
It
You just
seems
have to like
like
let it all go and be like, "Okay,
I
this is
know,
a TikTok, I guess."
that's what looks so wonderful about it, is that it does feel like only wild mistakes are embraced on there, and that's, like, my whole core self.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
okay, Beautifully Foolish Endeavor
Mhm.
wasn't the original title.
I know.
What was the original title?
I can't tell you. I don't
Oh, okay.
think. It
I
might be
thought
a little bit of did I tell somebody?
I think or no, you might have just misspoken the title in a
Oh
podcast
yeah.
episode or
Oh yeah.
something.
Yeah. Okay. I'll tell you that version. Sure. The there. Well, Grace, there were a number of different titles, and for a long time the
Yeah,
title
this is
was.
I'm prepping you for your whole press run that you'll have to
Thank you.
do for the
Yeah,
book. Don't
that's
worry.
exactly
We'll get
right.
it all out now.
Yeah. The for a while the title was A Beautifully Futile Endeavor, which I like a
Mm,
lot. Like I like for a lot of reasons. I think that
mhm.
it sounds better in the mouth. It's got a better
Okay.
mouth feel.
Mhm.
Beautifully well, and I screwed it
There
up.
you go. Perfect.
um, but the feedback was we don't love that feel. The vibe is
Mm,
a little off. I don't know if anybody's going to want to read a book that's just about a beautifully futile endeavor, which is um, you know, a kind of a little bit how I feel about humanity, which is
Mhm.
also, that's what the title refers to. It's
Yeah.
talking about, people and our endeavor. But ultimately it is futile. And a little bit of the beauty in it is in its futility. Like, there will come a day, and I
Mhm.
predict it will be long from now, when there will be no humans left to remember that humans were ever here. And so,
Hmm.
like, this thing that we sort of imagine as the human story, um, is, that like legacy and, like being remembered in any way. All of that to me
Mhm.
is like, ultimately, maybe it's kind of got a beauty to it, but it's very futile. What's not futile is like making things so that people today and tomorrow and all the days after that will have a slightly better life. And like,
Mm.
that's, but that's about them in that time, not about humanity as a whole. That sort of is a thing that stretches infinitely into the future. And I like, that's sort of like my touchstone when I'm trying to imagine, like, the human endeavor in sort of a large scale way, is that it's much more about affecting the people
Mhm.
that we love now, and that we want to like alleviate the suffering of now, but also, you know how that will, move on to theoretically most of the people who are people who haven't been born yet. Like, that's the
Hmm.
hope, is that most of the people haven't been born yet, and those are the people that we ultimately also have an obligation to.
So teens can read this.
Yeah, that philosophy does not really exist in the book. It just informs the book.
No,
Um,
that's I mean,
but
it sounds like you've gone to a very I mean, I it it's really wonderful and so cool and so, like, empowering to be able to use a novel as a vehicle to really write the deeper, darker thoughts
mhm.
that you have about and predictions that you have about humanity in general. So you must have kind of had to dip into some bleaker, more futile places in your
Y-
brain to think about it and then kind of like reform it into something that doesn't totally
mhm.
terrify humans.
Yeah. Well, and it is a little bit terrifying. I think that, anytime we're, dealing with, like, death is very scary, and then, like,
Mhm.
but we sort of alleviate that fear by thinking about, that the species continues, or that the human story continues. And then, but then there's also that thing that, like, eventually there's going to be some sort of species wide end.
Sure.
Probably. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we'll figure something out. Um, but, like, from what I know of how physics works, it would be hard to go on for,
Mhm.
tens of billions of years would be difficult. But, like, that's very much like, that's practically infinite by our current timescales.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I mean, the book is, to some extent, it's about it. So there is a character in the book who has a fairly good idea of what the future of humans might look like.
Is it
And
April?
no, it's Carl.
Oh. Oh, okay.
Um, and uh, and so and because of that, I have to sort of, from my perspective, like, silently on the outside as the author, also kind of feel like I have that, which of course I
Mhm.
don't. Like, the character actually does in the
Right.
universe of the novel, whereas I don't really. And interestingly, like, Carl and I come down on different spots on this. Like, Carl
Mm.
believes a different thing than I actually do. But, like, it was a more interesting story with Carl having a different opinion than me.
That must be difficult and also very cathartic to write through characters that have different opinions than you. Like, when you're writing, uh, you're writing these characters that are super rich, super complex. Are you doing anything exercise-wise to, like, break them down into, like, their moral codes in certain ways? Like,
Yeah.
their Hogwarts houses, if you will, their Myers-Briggs personalities, all of that?
Yeah, there's several, like, a lot of it is their backstory, so things
Mhm.
that, like, that's how I sort of touchstone to it, instead of thinking about Myers-Briggs or something. I um my sort of, like, building block is a few stories that I know about their past that informs who they are, that, like, the
Mhm.
reader never knows. And that just sort of
Oh,
helps
that's
me,
cool.
like sort of formative experiences that they had, that I can look to when they're in a difficult, like they're having to make a difficult decision, or they're trying to solve a hard problem.
No, that makes so much sense, and obviously makes it so much clearer for you when you do hit an impasse of how to navigate in that character's point of view, knowing all of that backstory,
Hmm.
because that's what humans do. Uh, so as of now, while we're recording this episode, your book has yet to be read by people other than close confidants, your brother
Yeah,
who
a couple of
raves.
we've we just got a couple of reviews from people who are not who like are paid to have opinions about books and not
Uh-huh,
paid to make me feel good about myself,
right?
which is very good because both of the reviews were very good.
Great.
And it just makes me feel very happy because like that's the first time you really know,
Right,
like,
so it that's my
yeah,
question, in that time, like, it's like, cooking a meal that you're like, "I've added everything I think makes this meal great.
yeah,
Are they gonna think it's great? I don't
yeah.
know." Like, what is that limbo period like?
It's terrible. I like the solution is generally like open the book, read a page of the book, and think to yourself, that was good.
Uh-huh.
Um, Sometimes though, you open the book, read a page of the book, and you're like, there's a couple things I would have changed there. That's actually not sure if I really did that one perfect. Um, and so like that's actually during the process of writing the book, there's a lot. It would be very unusual, I think, for authors to sort of not have a little bit of negative self-talk and like think that
Of course.
like why am I doing this? This is bad. And this is sounds a little egotistical, but the way that the path over that for me is always like reading some of the book and being like, well, that was good. Like I liked that. That
Good.
was that was good. That made me feel interested in the story, and I think that I did a good job of telling that joke, and etc.
That's
So
great.
but yes, the period of time between when the book is locked and when you get the first review is basically, for me, it's a constant uh practice of trying to not think about it. Because
Yeah,
thinking about it is always bad. If
yeah.
like the moment I think about it, it's just like straight anxiety spiral, sweaty pits,
Mhm.
and like completely distracted from everything else in my life by that thought.
Sure.
Yeah, but and then and yeah, and then the
So
first review comes out and like literally jumped up and down. I was so
that's
excited
great.
because
That's so
I had
exciting.
been spending so much time like trying not to think about this, that the
Mhm.
moment the review hit my inbox and it was a starred review from Library Journal, just like a basically a publication for librarians.
Yes, I
Um,
just heard about this on Dear Hank and John,
oh,
and you guys explained exactly what a one-star review is, a very, very
yeah,
elite,
it's the
great type
number
of
that's the top
review.
number of stars you can get in a review is 1 star, which is
That's
not.
great. I mean, they should talk to Yelp and clarify a star system so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we
The
can
most
all
most
universally.
reviews don't get a star, is basically the
Well,
thing.
congratulations.
Yeah, and I was yeah, I like there was the relief was massive, and they got it too. Like the things that they liked about the book are also things that I like about the book a lot.
That's great because do you ever have a certain person in mind that you are writing specifically for the like one person to enjoy this book? No, you're kind of writing
No,
broad.
I don't think about that. I don't even
You
think
don't think
about.
about other people, got it.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm just trying to tell the story, I guess.
No, I mean, that's great. Everyone has their system, and I'm always fascinated as to, like, what maybe you've adopted or don't even know that you've adopted because this is
Yeah.
it's your second novel
Hmm.
compared to the first. Easier? More
No,
difficult?
harder, significantly harder. A couple of
Really?
yeah. I mean, I didn't have a time limit on the first one, so
Mm.
I just like I wrote it for like 8 years, and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I like threw stuff away and rewrote stuff constantly, and like ignored it for months at a time. Whereas this one, I had a deadline, and so that was very different. And I also like just stylistically, I changed some things up. It's a little bit longer, so that takes more time, and also it's from multiple points of view. So the first book was almost all, except for the last chapter, from one person's point of view.
Mhm,
Just April sort of like writing her memoir.
mhm.
And this one, April's not around, um, she's not trying to avoid spoilers here. She's not
Yeah, no
around.
worries.
Um, and the
Or is she?
or is she? She actually does have the first chapter, so like you'll
Okay.
see her. Um, so and that's known. That's not new information. So and then
Okay.
the rest of them are from the perspective of uh 4 other characters. And so I
That's
had to
very
like write
exciting.
all these other characters, and that was really difficult because I had like getting into April's head, it was hard, but like once I was
Mhm.
there, I was there. Switching
Right.
back and forth all the time. And there was a lot of times when I wrote a scene from one person's point of view and then it like didn't fit into the story right. So I'd have to
Mm.
rewrite the scene from another person's point of view, which is really an interesting exercise because like as I did it, I was like, your brain is different. You
Wow.
imagine things differently than that other character. You see this all differently. You're not seeing yourself. And so
Mhm.
you don't like, we usually don't know what we look like or what our faces are doing. And so like,
Right.
that is all
That's
like that's
I
a really fun exercise to do in general, I think. But like it turned out it was a thing I had to do accidentally.
No, that's, yeah, I think in basic terms, what is, like, empathy or compassion are offshoots of that exercise, just being
Hmm.
able to understand someone else's point of view and exactly how they would respond to a situation and why is, super fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, okay, we're gonna take a quick break. When we get back, I have more questions for you, and then, I also have some questions from the internet for you, so I'll be right back
Okay.
with more Not Too
Awesome.
Deep.
Too deep with Grace Helbig.
Hey guys, we're taking a break from the podcast real quick to do some promotion of ourselves. That's right. Yes, we are promoting ourselves. Little reminder to you guys out there that if you go into the Apple Podcasts and you rate and review Not Too Deep, it's a beautiful, wonderful, helpful thing for us and for you guys. It helps people find our podcast. It helps us hear what you guys like, what you don't like, etc. And we just appreciate you taking the time. Again, go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating, a review, whatever you want. Okay, we're back in. Speaking of quarantine, have you and Catherine learned anything new about each other in this quarantine?
um,
Because my
I
favorite
th-
thing of listening to Delete This, which if you guys don't know, Hank and Catherine have a wonderful podcast called Delete This, and it just makes you, while you're listening to it, feel like you're crawled up in bed with them, like crunching on chips and just like looking at a computer screen. Because I love that the microphone sounds like it's 10 feet
yeah.
away from
Yeah,
both of you.
it's not well produced. Yeah, that's the
But
vibe.
and then you
Yeah.
guys will just spend like 20 minutes watching a cat video together, just laughing at it, explaining nothing to people that are only listening,
We
and
try
I
to
love it.
explain. We try to explain.
No, I love it. I love how casual it is, and I love how Catherine's just so over it immediately, and it's wonderful. Wonderful. But in quarantine, you guys have obviously probably been spending
Mhm.
way more time together. Have you learned anything new?
I think that we've definitely learned. I mean, Catherine and I have both learned that like my seemingly infinite capacity for like getting shit done is not infinite,
Ah,
and so we have had to look harder at my priorities, not our priorities, because I think the Catherine's are pretty in order. Um,
yeah, I feel like also on Delete This, every episode is Catherine just publicly stating how much she doesn't condone you working as hard on as many things as you do.
yeah, 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 that is definitely a theme.
I love
Yeah.
it. It's literally like her last course of action is to say it on the podcast to get someone to back her up.
Does anybody agree with me on this
Yeah.
one? Yeah, don't worry, they do. They all do. And yeah, and so but actually I had to do it. And
Yeah.
like physically, I just like it didn't have enough time to do all the obligations that I had signed up for.
Mhm.
And my life got like more complicated. It didn't have like extra time when quarantine rolled around. I had much less because of trying to like figure out how to run a business in in this time, and like how to keep
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
safe and employed, and like change the way that we operate out of our warehouse, and like all this stuff, which was really important, but was a
And it's
lot of
all stuff
work.
no one sees. It's all happening behind the scenes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and all like really important stuff. But like, yeah. So I went down to not to much less sleep than I usually get, and that clearly started to look unsustainable. And yeah, and so I kind of like I met my limit. I finally
Yeah.
figured out where it was. Now I know.
That's that's great. And it only took a global pandemic for you to get there.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's a little bit of what's happening with everyone that's been in the digital space for a certain period of time. Everyone's
Hmm.
having a little bit of that reflective moment of where do we go from here? How do we go from here?
Yeah.
What do we go from here
Yeah.
situation?
I think there's also like a certain amount of like locating strength in a hard time where um I think we can be surprised by the strength of our family members when
Mhm.
especially some sort of like in a more traditional role. Like I might feel like I'm the one who must like provide the strength and support in the difficult time because I am the man.
Right.
And like finding that there were going to be times when I was going to be weak and feel really sort of broken and helpless, and um feel like a failure like at times, and to
Mhm.
have and also Catherine would have these times when she'd feel really uncertain and not know what to do, and like knowing that we could be strong for each other in the moments when we needed it was
Trusting
you
each
know
other. Truly
yeah.
trusting, like, your abilities to support each other,
Mhm.
at any particular moment, because I feel like this time's so wild that it's impossible to predict, like, when that overwhelm is gonna wash over you and you feel like
Mhm.
the weight of the world, and then the moments when you feel like, "Now it's time to TikTok. Let's do it up."
I wish I could get Catherine to TikTok with me.
Oh,
Uh,
I just want a slightly over it Catherine in the background of your TikToks, not participating at all. That's my
yeah,
suggestion.
I just like come into the room and I'm like doing a TikTok dance, and Catherine's like, "Oh no."
Oh, I'd love it so much. Uh,
I do think that I will never do a TikTok dance. Um,
oh, well, it's
I
on
think
the record
I
here. We'll
could
see what happens.
I could probably pull it off, but it looks like these kids are good dancers. It looks like a lot of
It's
work.
It's so impressive that and it blows my mind that that's what I am finding impressive at this, state of the world and my age. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's wildly impressive, and I just, know that I can't do it, so I have to appreciate the people that
yeah,
can.
hear that.
Um, what's it like having the coolest son?
It's so good. He's
How
great.
old is Oren? Is how
Yeah,
old now?
he's like 3.5 right now.
So he's
And
reached that point where he kind of is starting to understand things?
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
he gets some stuff pretty well. He knows when like a good thing's gonna happen, and he knows when a bad thing's gonna happen, and he
Can you let
expresses
him know to tell
his
me when the good things and the bad things are gonna happen?
yeah. Well, you just have to like adjust your perspective on what a good thing is. Like a
Yeah,
good
that's
thing is
true.
like watching Octonauts. you
Oh,
know?
yeah, he just knows
Yeah.
how to appreciate the small things, yeah.
Exactly. And it is such an interesting um thing to watch a person become themselves a little bit, to watch their
Mhm.
personality form, and to see their like Oren's like weird interests. And
Oh,
I don't know why he gets into like certain things. And I'm like, was that me? Did I like like express value in that object, or was that
right.
you? Or are you just like some like a kid who's really into the moon, and he's super into the moon,
Oh,
always
that's
has been.
cool.
Every time the moon's up in the sky, he sees it way before. Like he like every time he walks outside, he like looks checks to make sure the moon's up, like or not. And he's
Does he
like,
know something that we don't know?
it's like,
Like, he's like that's his escape route for when the
yeah,
world really goes bad, and he's just making
yeah.
sure it's still parked in the waiting period.
Well, one of the first like more complex sentences he ever said was, "Moon friend always comes back."
Wow, that
I
is
know.
incredibly ominous. As as like a beautiful sentiment, and also
Yeah, like,
I want to be like,
I'm a little freaked out.
what has something visited your window in the night? What's
Yeah.
going on? Uh, what are his interests? Because that to me is so fascinating. Where he's at the phase
Mhm.
where he's like, I mean, children are sponges. Like you
Right.
said, like, is this me or did you naturally find this interesting?
Right. Yeah, he loves to read. He loves to read, by which I mean he loves to have me read to him. And
So he's a big Audible fan.
and he loves to throw things. This is one of his
Oh,
major interests. He loves
okay.
throwing things, particularly if he can throw them into either a hole or a
Okay.
body of water, which I don't think is roughly equivalent to him. But he loves it when he throws something and then he can't have it anymore. He's like, basically,
Wow.
I've made this thing vanish. There's on our street, there's like somebody's sawed off a chain link fence that's like
Uh-huh.
sunk into asphalt. They couldn't
Okay.
get it out of the asphalt, so they just sawed it off. So like the base of the chain link fence is still open, and so it's like a little round hole that's just
Uh-huh.
dark inside. It's just darkness in there. And Oren over the last year has filled up every one of them
Just with stuff?
with little stuff. Yeah, the stuff he picks up and puts in the hole. And I'm like, we're going on a walk, and he's like, I just got to put a couple more rocks into this hole.
He likes things to have fullness, completion. That's
Yeah.
very sweet.
Yep.
Have you spent any time thinking about what you do in relation to showing him eventually?
Oh, what do you mean?
Like videos, like the
Oh,
book,
right.
like the eventual understanding that you do things that affect many people.
Or yeah, or like other people don't have the same job as me.
Right.
I haven't spent much time thinking about that. He likes my songs. Like
Okay.
he'll come into my office and he'll be like, "Daddy, play Anglerfish by Hank Green." Like I'm Alexa.
Oh. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, that you don't have to like put the artist on it. It's just I know what you mean.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And so yeah, he knows that I can play songs, but I don't think he thinks that's weird or exceptional.
Mhm.
And and he also watches SciShow Kids, our kids show, and I am occasionally
Oh,
on that show. So when I show up, he's like, "There's Daddy, Daddy's there." But I don't think he thinks that's weird either. Like I think that
right.
he just thinks that like Daddy's in the video sometimes. And
Oh, that's so
he's watched
interesting.
me edit video. Like sometimes he like sits on my lap while I make Vlogbrothers, and so he's sort of I don't know if he has any idea what I'm doing. I think he thinks I'm just like watching bad, weird video that goes backward and
But
forward a lot.
everyone watches videos of themselves.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the whole science side of it, because not only have you written your second book, but you still are heavily involved in science, and we're
Hmm.
in this pandemic, and I'm sure you've looked at everything. And
Hmm.
my biggest question, because I did see this on your TikTok a little bit, is the idea of debunking scientific information that is false that goes viral.
Hmm.
Because I think that is kind of one of the more major things happening right now. And especially for myself, where I'm going online, I'm trying to figure out and stay informed. And if something is just passed around kind of frivolously,
Hmm.
you have to really check yourself on making sure you don't take, frivolous as fact.
Yep.
Do you feel a major obligation to be kind of like regulating this right now, or just like calling out for people to acknowledge that this is possible and to do their own like due diligence research kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that like right now is harder than it's ever been because
Yeah.
usually when we're doing science communication, we're communicating about stuff that we've had a lot of time to learn, that we've
Hmm.
done a lot of checking on, that you know, we've had the time to do the research, and research takes time.
Hmm.
And during this period, we have had to sort of like go with what was best at the moment.
Right.
And the best information that we had at the time is going to be different from the best information that we have now. And that's a hard thing to explain to people because in general the science story is generally pitched as like, here's all the things.
Hmm.
And then if you get more nuanced than that, it's like, here's all the things we know. But like it's very important. And also if you are in science communication or in science, what you know is that like we are in the middle of science. We have
Right.
gotten this far through, and there is basically infinite things that we don't know, and we don't talk about the things that we don't know because we don't know
Hmm.
them. Like not because we don't want to admit it, but because like it's not interesting because we don't know them.
Right. Right.
um,
Right.
and it can be interesting to say like, we don't really know how Portuguese man-o-war breed. Like that's an interesting thing that we don't know, but
Hmm.
like we don't. But it's much less interesting than Portuguese man-o-war are actually not an organism. They are 4 different organisms that rely on each other to survive and integrate their flesh together, but have distinct nervous systems and genetic material. And that's like, what? So like this
Huh?
animal is not an animal. It's 4 different animals. And like, sorry, that's how it
Whoa.
works. Yeah. So like that's more interesting, and that's the thing that we know. But like if we knew how Portuguese man-o-war bred, there'd probably be something similarly weird that I could tell you, but like we just don't have
Hmm.
a great idea of how it works. We know a couple things. But so there's we also, mostly when we teach people, we don't teach them that like there's all this stuff we don't know, or even that the stuff that we found out was once stuff that we didn't know. In
Hmm.
many cases, up until very recently. And so that presents this idea that science is this static thing and it's a body of knowledge. And then when science sort of says a different thing one day than another day, then it feels like, oh, all credibility has been lost.
Oh,
Unless you sort of understand that this is a process, not a static body of knowledge. So
yeah. And
that's
I
well,
no, go ahead. That's yeah. That's very interesting the way that you put that, because that makes sense why people um, with short tempers immediately lose their patience with
yeah.
scientists and doctors and the like, because it is
Hmm.
an ever evolving
Yeah.
academic world, and it's impossible to know absolutely everything about everything.
Right. And like, with something that's like very new,
Hmm.
like the control of the spread of a specific disease, we're not going to know anything at first.
Hmm.
And so, you give the best information that, with mask wearing, for example, like you don't want to like run out of masks for healthcare professionals. So initially you say, well, we're not sure if masks are going to help, and so don't worry about it right now. Then research comes out that says that masks definitely do help. And also we have way more of them because we were able to scale up production capacity.
Hmm.
So definitely wear a mask. And suddenly it's like, well, you told me a different thing a month ago. I can't trust you. And it's like, well, like there's a reason why we told you a different thing a month ago. And like reasons have changed.
Hmm.
As for like how obligated I feel to communicate and to fight against misinformation, vary, especially like right now when it comes to masks.
Right.
It is
Yeah.
very important that when we are indoors with other people that we are wearing masks.
Hmm.
Like that is a thing that's going to save lives. It's going
Yep.
to be a thing that will allow the economy to reopen and stay opened for longer. It's going to have people, like it's going to allow us to continue to have jobs and help each other. And it's going to
Hmm.
keep people who have worked their whole lives to make this country better and are now in their 60s and 70s and 80s. It's going to keep those people alive, and we're going to protect those people who are people that we can care about.
Yep.
And like that, like you are not wearing a mask to protect yourself. You're wearing a mask to protect other people, and you're wearing a mask to normalize it so that
Yeah.
other people see that and say like, oh, it's normal to wear a mask and I shouldn't feel weird about this.
It's like shoes.
It's like shoes. It's just like
Like,
shoes.
we don't have to wear shoes, but we wear shoes.
Yeah.
And if we just make a mask style video like shoes, the YouTube video, I think
Shoes.
that masks.
Yeah.
I think that could work. I also wonder, when you were talking about how, the way in which you speak about science is ever evolving, so people get upset when suddenly something is slightly different than what was reported before. I wonder if there's a way to present science like a reality television show. like previously on Science.
Yeah.
And then you say what the story was before and you acknowledge. And then it's under the, narrative and the structure that it's going to be changing and evolving as the
Yeah.
storyline progresses.
Uh-huh.
I wonder
I
if
like
more
that.
people could get on board with it.
I like that. Well, I mean, and that's basically the story of every science news story, is that like previously we thought X, but actually
Right.
Y. And
So we just
hell
got to
yeah.
jazz up the editing and get a couple scientists that really have low morals to be involved and to create some sort of drama.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally everyone will get it.
There's reality TV that doesn't rely exclusively on drama. You just gotta. It's like we have to have like
Okay, what are you
science.
watching?
I've watched like literally every season of Drag Race, even the first one, which is not super easy to do.
Are you watching All Stars right now?
I am watching All Stars right now.
Okay, are you rooting for anyone in particular? I'm a big Juju B fan.
Oh, I like Juju B.
And also Shea Coulee is just such a champion.
That's who I was trying to think of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shea. And like Shea, I don't want to spoil it, but like this is coming out far in the future. Shea was in the bottom of the most recent episode that I watched, and that was very scary for me and Catherine.
Oh, same. I was, and because the rules of the All-Star seasons are very like Survivor style rules where like you can vote out your biggest threat, that it feels like, oof, there's a lot of psychological warfare going on.
Yeah, Drag Race has always felt like it's intentionally avoided that survival style, like get rid of the biggest threat, in part because like you don't want to have a final between like two queens who aren't great. Like you want the best people to reach the end so that the like last three people are amazing.
Right.
And you like see it and believe it. And so you don't want, you don't want to lose those people. But I think that that culture kind of has stood up and hopefully will hold up. But I do really like the lip sync assassin. That's very
Me too.
good. That's a great innovation, and I'm super into it.
It's so fun. And also having watched the Untucked, where they show you like the arrival of the lip sync assassin and knowing that it is super secretive and none of the queens know who it is. Ooh, it makes me so excited.
Yeah. Well, and that first lip sync with Evie Oddly, I was like, well, I mean, I guess that was the best one that will ever happen.
If that set the tone, I was like, I will buckle up every single Friday night and wait for this. I can't. It's so, I know that's why the Alyssa Edwards one was a little disappointing, but I've heard conspiracy theories that they've like edited around her like doing super great to try and
you can't have the award just keep piling up, I think.
Yeah, totally, because then there's also all the question marks around like how long does the lip sync assassin have to prepare for this song versus like the queens that are on set all day. I just want to God, I love it.
I love the Drag Race community too. Like people just spend a lot of time thinking and knowing and learning, and it's good.
It's really beautiful. Okay, we're going to take one last break. When we get back, we have some internet questions for you, Hank Green. We'll be right back with more Not Too Deep.
Okay, thank you, Grace.
Not too deep with Grace Helbig.
Okay, Hank, before we get into a couple questions from the internet, I'm going to ask you the two questions that every single guest on the podcast is asked to answer.
Okay.
And the first, since you've been on before, I don't recall exactly what your answers were to these questions. So we'll see. Someone can go back and check and see if they're the same. The first is, who, alive or dead, would you most want to throw cold spaghetti at? Or just spaghetti?
I probably told the story of the time that I threw cold spaghetti at a friend of mine and got in a lot of trouble.
That sounds familiar.
And I apologized to Casey for that. It'd be, obviously I can't, and I'm sure I'm not the only one to say this, I can't throw cold spaghetti at Donald Trump because like I don't want to go to prison, and like that's currently illegal, like very illegal.
Well, a lot of people have just flat out said they would, so you'll be joining a lot of people in prison.
Yeah, well, the question is, do I have amnesty?
Right. And this can change on a daily basis. This is just who, in this moment that we're recording this podcast, alive or dead, would you most want to throw it at?
Yeah, it's so hard to not throw cold spaghetti at Donald Trump. Like, it's
Mhm.
just hard.
I mean, imagine the tweet that would come out of that situation.
Who has that level of self-control to not do that?
It's also just like so to throw it at someone like him is just so embarrassing
Yeah,
seeming. Like it's just so
right, right.
silly.
Yeah, and he's like always he like hates it whenever like somebody sees like his makeup on his collar and like
Yeah.
any like appearance of being imperfect is so like
Uh-huh.
counter to his narcissism that I'm just like I just
Uh-huh.
want to dirty that boy up.
I think that'd be great. So is that your final answer
That's
then?
my final answer.
All right, wonderful. The next question, as always, tell us your worst pants shitting story or close call, but you can only use 3 words or 3 small phrases or some kind of
Uh-huh.
combination. So mine,
Mhm.
for example, is college jogging front lawn.
Right. I think that my last one was my waffle stomp.
Yes.
And
Oh, yes. That phrase I learned from you and has never left my brain since.
but I've got plenty because I have ulcerative colitis. So there's a number of times that what about um seatbelt sign on wait, what was I should have prepped it better. I knew what story I was gonna tell, I just didn't know how I was gonna say it. Okay.
You can edit. You can take it back.
What's the area of the okay, I found the word.
Okay. Okay.
Um it's 3 words is not enough.
Or a small
Oh,
phrases.
well, I could just say stuck on the tarmac.
Yeah, you can say that. So wait, what is it?
Stuck on the tarmac, which
Okay.
is 4 words. But
Okay.
you know when like your plane,
Yep.
like it starts to go, but then it's like, no, actually, we're not going to go.
Yeah.
Or when it like lands and it's like, well, the gate's not open, so we're just going to sit here.
Yes.
That period of time from when the seatbelt light goes on to when you arrive at the gate, it can be a very long time when you
Yes.
have an active ulcerative colitis flare.
Oof.
And I actually like she saw me and I was like sweating and like in like
Yeah.
obvious distress, and the stewardess was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I need to go very badly to the bathroom." And she was like, "I'll tell the pilot." And so like they stopped the plane so I
Oh,
could poo.
Oh
And,
no.
like- And I
So
like walked to the back and they like, yeah.
Oh no.
And then
So
like
it's
just they were like, well, we're not gonna we'll stay here until you get back to your seat. Because you can't get up while they're on the ground. There's like very
Right.
strict FAA rules.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh no. So we'll let
Yeah.
you alleviate yourself, but we're all gonna know. And we're all be waiting and watching
Yeah, and like
as
see
it
it like I'm
happens.
like pure green
Oh
and like
God.
in like actual like significant pain and sweating.
But you're not the first person that they've had to do something like
Absolutely,
that. That's how I
absolutely.
remind myself.
And like
of the
it would have been
situation.
way worse for everybody if I'd shat on the plane seat.
Hugely, massively, terrible.
Mhm.
No, I've been stuck on the tarmac with a very overfull bladder, and it really opens up a new part of your creative problem solving brain that you didn't
Mhm.
know existed. Of like,
Mhm.
how can I use this blanket as a temporary diaper situation for myself and possibly get off
Right.
this plane with no one
Yeah,
knowing?
yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
it's and also like I watch a lot of Survivor now, and like they put their bodies through insanity that it's really truly like the mind over matter situation of I'll think myself into comfort right now. I have a superpower
Yeah,
called my
totally.
brain.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right,
I got a couple of surprising tricks that prevents me from pooping when I otherwise would poop.
there you go.
It's all about
That's
one thing that I don't know, like you do this to yourself. You have a whole section of your podcast about poop. So it's
yeah.
not
It's like, well, that's the thing is that I feel like this could be your third book. I think people,
yeah.
it's not something that, is necessarily enjoyable conversation. It's cathartic conversation because everyone has had difficulties and situations with it. And so
Yeah.
I like commiserating rather than shaming.
Yeah, I feel there's a weird thing where I feel like if I try and like hold my poop in, with my butt muscle, with my actual sphincter, it doesn't
Yeah.
work. It just
Yeah.
like tightens down and pushes on it.
Yeah.
But if I can like, there's like a muscle inside that's like further up that I can relax, and it takes a lot of. It's like a meditative thing, and it's like I feel like some kind
like your
of
brain.
monk. Like it's my brain. It's like I'm some kind of like a special monk who can control his like the speed of his heartbeat, except it's my poop, and
Right.
I can make it sort of like come back up a little bit.
And then you get into a space where you go, I might never have to poop ever again if I can master this ability.
Yeah, I'm a poop monk.
I love it. Okay, here's a couple internet questions for you real quick before we wrap everything up. Speaking of all of these, Southern Hemisphere shenanigans, someone wants to know, what would April May's pants shitting story be? I mean, you said you've created all of these stories about all the characters that help you, flesh them out emotionally.
Yeah, I think April May's pants shooting story would definitely be like a too drunk mid hookup, like sudden pause,
cheap sheets. Okay. What's the weirdest and or most embarrassing thing that Oren has said or done?
Very recently we listened to this podcast called My Brother and Me, as these three brothers, and they make very funny jokes and tell people bad advice, and they say fuck a lot. And we are now at the age where we're going to have to stop listening to it, because he looked down at my phone and saw the podcast art for this podcast, and he thought about it for a moment, and then he said, fucking. And I'm like, that's what you think the podcast is called.
Oh, no.
Like you see that picture, and like your first thought is just the word fuck.
That's so interesting. I wonder why that word. It must be that it's like.
I mean, it's a great word. Like, it's very sticky, and like he can tell. Like, even though we tried our best to not make a big deal out of when he says it or when we say it,
it's a superpower. It's like how dogs know that your animals know that you're stressed out, and you don't even realize.
Yeah. He's definitely he says fuck all the time, and it's like a problem.
How do you? I don't even know.
He doesn't know what it is. He like walks around and he like says words. Like, he says words all the time, where he's just sort of like working out his like language center of his brain, and he'll be like, headphone, fuck.
Right. So, I mean, because you can't fault him. All he had were noises before he developed into words. And so he's still just testing out noises.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, someone wants to know, if you could get paid in anything other than money, what would you want?
I mean, tacos, like really good tacos, though.
Okay.
There's a place in Missoula called Camino, and they have these amazing, like, they make their own tortillas, and it's just like, and if it all, well, I guess I should broaden it and say just stuff like meals from the Camino, and that includes margaritas.
Great. Yeah. If you get paid in those, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
A lot of people asked, what side of TikTok is he on? And I don't know.
I'm on the Pelican side of TikTok.
What does this mean?
So TikTok is it's algorithmically based.
Okay.
And so it is constantly like showing you little bits of stuff and then seeing what you engage with. And then it's sort of like its artificial intelligences group you into groups. And so there's like the gay side of TikTok and the straight side of TikTok. And like, once you sort of like migrate over to the gay side of TikTok, you see less and less straight TikTok. But there's also like these weird things that happen where the group gets hijacked by a meme. So for example, there was for a while Beans TikTok. It's still a thing, but like Beans Tick is kind of on its way out, a little bit of a feel to me, where there's just like, it was very like weird bean content was surfacing to the people who are like not, normal, the people who kind of like thrive on weirdness. We're getting really strange but very good bean content.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people who of course then place value on the different parts, and they sort of like, if you're on bean TikTok, then you're like then you're on like elite TikTok, not on like basic TikTok.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I've tried to create my own like safe space on TikTok, which is called Pelic Talk, and it's the pelican side of TikTok where we talk about pelicans.
Okay.
And it's just me.
I mean, it has to start. A movement has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And
But as long as you use the same hashtags, then like occasionally people will get like 4 Hank Green Pelican TikToks in a row, and they're like, "What is happening?" And I'm like, "I hacked the algorithm.
I've
I'm a hacker."
infiltrated. I've done it. Are pelicans an animal of choice for you?
I do love pelicans. Catherine used to work at a wildlife rehab, and so I've
Ah.
had some like straight up very like close interactions with pelicans.
They've
They're-
always kind of terrified me. I think
They're
a little,
really big. Yeah,
they're much bigger than you assume they are when you get close to them, and they're very pterodactyl-like.
to
me.
they absolutely. There are pterodons that not just look like pelicans, but we think like are like convergently evolved to sort of the same feeding strategies. So are
Wow.
basically giant pelicans. But they're great. They're very weird. There's a lot of great things to know about pelicans, and there's also some misinformation about like some science communication I'd like to do around how pelicans work and don't work. So
That's great.
I've got several
mean,
pelican TikToks all planned out actually.
wow. I was gonna ask you. Someone wanted to know what is your absolute favorite weird-looking animal, but
I
this
mean,
might cover
I
it
don't know
unless
that
there's another.
I don't know that pelicans are it. There's a kind of sea slug
Okay.
that I think that I'm more into, and I can't remember the name of it, but they're really pretty. They're like these blue sea slugs. I'll look it up. And the thing that we were just talking about Portuguese man-o-wars, it's called the blue glaucus.
The blue
glaucus.
Glaucus. Okay.
Yeah.
Fun to say.
And I found out about this because I'm doing research on man-o-war right now, and the blue glaucus actually predates Portuguese man-o-war, which is very hard to do because they're like floating around on the top of the ocean, and these are sea slugs, which you would think would be on the bottom, but they also inflate a bladder inside of their body, float up to the top of the surface, eat on the man-o-war, and then you're thinking, but those are like super stinging animals, right?
Right.
The blue glaucus absorbs and takes the stinging cells of the man-o-war and uses them on its own body to then incapacitate other man-o-war. So like once it gets one man-o-war, it becomes more powerful because it can use the stinging cells from its devoured prey to attack its family.
Whoa.
And they're also very, very pretty. And you look at them and like there's a lot of pictures of people like holding them in their hands, but they're like, don't pick them up because they can totally sting you.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So they basically take on the power from their first prey and use it to kill their other prey.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And those are your favorite weird-looking animals.
Well, they're also gorgeous, but they are bad. It does seem a little bad.
Isn't
but my
that always
favorite-
the case? The most beautiful ones just take.
Yeah, probably my favorite right now is the pelican, though, in terms of like actual affinity. I feel like my Patronus is a pelican actually says like resonates a lot more than other Patronuses I've had in the past.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hank, we've reached the end of the podcast, but before you go, usually as a gift to our guests for making time, we offer them a personalized fortune cookie. But because we are doing this virtually, we have a virtual personalized fortune cookie for you that I believe Melissa has emailed to you.
I see it.
Okay, and you can open it and read it aloud.
Okay. It says, knock, knock. Who's there? April. Just kidding. We won't actually know if it's her or an imposter being her until we read the sequel, which technically isn't out yet. And I guess that's kind of your fault. No, just kidding. We're sorry. We just are really excited for the new book. Thank you.
Wow.
That's great.
And there you go. What a
I've
fortune.
never had such an information dense fortune before.
Yeah. I mean, it's 2020. Anything's possible. Hank, where can people find you and listen to you and read the new book or pre-order it or get it, everything, if they don't already know?
Okay, I'm on TikTok. My name is Hank Green, but I am Hank Green 1 because I couldn't get Hank Green. I was too late.
Oh,
I'm
that's
Hank Green.
great.
I'm Hank Green everywhere else, but on YouTube I'm Vlogbrothers with my brother John. and also make science content on SciShow. My podcasts are Dear Hank and John, which is an advice podcast that is bad with my brother, and
It's
Delete
wonderful.
This, which is
Equally wonderful.
which is my wife criticizing my Twitter feed.
Yeah.
And my new book, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor, is out July 7th, which is either already happened or will happen very soon.
Wonderful. Go
Yeah.
get that book.
I'm so excited to have people read it.
Oh, it's going to be so great. Is it available on audiobook as well?
Yeah, actually, the audiobook we worked really hard on it. And there's podcasts in the book, like excerpts from podcasts, and we like recorded them as podcasts.
That's so
For the
freaking
audiobook,
cool.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, everyone go check out all of it. Most importantly, the book. And, follow the TikToks. See where the beans are going. Thank you, Hank.
Thank you, Grace.
We will see you guys next time on another episode of Not Too Deep. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Too deep, too deep, too deep, not too deep with Grace Helbig.
Not Too Deep is a production of Grace Helbig Incorporated, producer Melissa D. Montz, edited by Shireen Lani Eunice, post-production sound by Chris Henry, and an extra special thanks to Flula for the theme music.